Brian Hendricks. I'm the Executive Director of the Bangor Symphony Orchestra. It's a thrill to be here today. As many have said, it's been a long time coming. Thank you so much to Kate Dickerson and the Maine Science Festival for your long-term devoted collaboration and our entire community, bringing the arts and science together. It's not just tonight, it's been over the years, and we are grateful for this partnership, and our community is grateful, so thank you. It has been quite the week for our maestro, Lucas Richmond, most of all, but we are so thrilled that he is here with us tonight, and he will be participating in the talkback immediately after the performance, so we invite you all to stay for that. We are grateful to conductor Jay Sogren for stepping in at the last moment. We really, really appreciate him being here. It's been a wonderful set of rehearsals, and we're just thrilled about what you are going to experience tonight with the premiere of Lucas Richmond's The Morning Sea, featuring the Bangor Symphony, the Bangor Area Youth Choirs, and the treble voices of Divisi. I have a few notes to share for you, putting my Lucas Richmond cap on. All the sounds you're hearing tonight will be coming from the orchestra. The wonderful video created by Chuck Carter to accompany The Morning Sea is silent. Lucas has woven the natural sounds of ocean waves, harbor bells, seagulls, and more into the instruments you see here on stage behind me, as part of a larger effort to musically dramatize the gradual changes felt by those in and out of the water in the Gulf of Maine over the past 200 years. You will hear those seagulls chant in Morse code the words truth and hope. Side by side, historic events such as the introduction of the foghorn in 1859 and the publication of the first scientific paper on climate change in 1938. The women's voices evoke the mythological legend of the sirens who woo the sailors to a rocky death, but in this case, they sing the doomed song of climate change deniers. After 200 years of temperature increases depicted across 200 measures, the work comes to a climax that heralds the final anthem, Hope Begins with Truth. At this voice, you'll hear the children's choir enter. They have the voices and the questions about the future they face with climate change. These are the words they sing. Have you told them? Have you told your children the truth? They need to know that things will not remain as they were. Once long ago, do you wonder? Have you filled their sails full of hope? Hope helps them soar. Tides are shifting, seas are warming. Up ahead there's no turning back when there's no shore. Teach them that hope begins with truth. Tell them the truth. They need to know. So give them hope and give them life. Hope begins with truth. Thank you.
So these are some of the remarkable people who again, I called and said, I have this really great idea. I'm gonna fill up this composer guy's brain with science, and would you please explain what you do in maybe an hour? And they did. They all said yes, and among many other people. So before I forget, I just want to introduce really quickly who's up here in case you don't recognize them from the film. We've got, you can take your mask off up here. We've got Barney Balch from Bigelow Laboratory, Jeremy Gableson from Maine Coast Heritage Trust. Jeremy was our big field trip. We actually walked around, as you saw in the Swamp March, which was Salt Marsh, which was the most fun I've ever had, like dragging Lucas around. Most of our conversations were they were in conference rooms, so it was pretty great to do that. We got Kathy Renzo with the also really great time. She was previously, she's now retired, was at Friends of Casco Bay. She took us out in Casco Bay, which really helped us understand not just what they did, but what we were talking about. And that was day 2 of the interviews. It was really early on. We have Sean Burkle, who has the world's best title. He's the Maine State climatologist. Sean provided Lucas with 200 years worth of climate data that deeply informed the piece. We have, sorry, it's way down there. We have Heather Hamlin, who squeezed us in, you may have seen from the film, in between meetings on UMaine's campus. You know, she said, I've got 20 minutes. I said, we can do this, it'll be great. And she just walked down the green, and we took advantage of every second of it. And Scarlett Tudor, who wasn't in the films because she was one of the people we brought with us to go meet middle school students. So after we did all of the cramming into Lucas's brain, like I mentioned, and then we went and asked, Lucas went and asked middle school students what they would like to hear in the piece. So just very quickly, I know it's been a long night. I mean, it's never too long for me for science. I could keep you here all night, but that doesn't seem fair. I would like, I'm going to come to you last. I would like each of you to just kind of give a very quick reaction of what you thought of this piece compared to like when you spoke with Lucas 14 million years ago, which was really only 2.5 or 3 years ago. So what this piece sounded like to you, just very quickly.
First of all, thank you so much. The sounds, they made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and when the music is good, that's what happens. So it was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, when you first called me up and said you were composing a symphonic piece about climate change and could we come out and talk about our work, my first thought was, wow. And my second thought was, that's really cool. And I think that's right about where I am now.
Well, Lucas, I thought it was relentless in a way that climate change science has felt in my head and in my heart. And I liked that the tension never resolves, even though it gets sweet with that children's chorus at the end. You keep it building and building, and then at the end, we're still left hanging, which is really where we are. So thank you for that.
Yes, Lucas, thank you. An amazing piece, and I think you captured the tension remarkably well, and it's very dynamic. And I have to say, I got a little teary with the children's choir, but I am left with a sense of hope, and really an amazing job. Thank you. And also thank you for having me involved too.
Thank you. That was amazing. And it was so emotionally charged. Like the whole time, I'm like, almost trying to hold back tears. It was amazing. And I think if lobsters could sing, which I'm glad they can't because it would be terrifying, but that would be a song. That would be amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, I really want to thank Lucas too. I think as scientists, we're really taught to remove emotion from what we're doing, right? And think about everything in an analytical way and trying to remove that. And I think because of that, it's hard for scientists to take non-scientists on the journey that we all feel looking at data, that like you reading a 30-page report might not evoke that same energy. And so I really thank Lucas for doing this, because I think these kind of things are the bridges between the science and what we know and the call to action to you all.
So before I go back to, I think of you all as my dear friends, even though we've only met a few times, because I've spent so much time watching all of the videos and the film and the interviews. I feel like, you know, I've been talking to you for months now. I want to know what you thought as someone who composed this, and although didn't get to be part of the performance, got to experience it much like us. I'll just leave it.
Well, first of all, I want to say a big thank you to Kate for seeing this through. This would not have happened without her. So this journey has been extraordinary, and I'm so grateful to all of you for teaching me. And I have so much to learn, and we all have so much to learn. What Scarlett mentioned reminds me that music is an international language, and we don't need to be versed in the technique of music in order to feel something with it. The language of science is a language unto itself, and it's split into hundreds, if not thousands, of different categories and different dialects. And how is it possible for us to be able to grasp the severity of the things that these incredible people are uncovering every day if we don't speak the same language? So perhaps it does take something like a more visceral language understanding to bridge that gap, to begin that discussion that we're having. In the panel earlier, somebody did mention at the very, very end, and I think it was Kat, who mentioned that there are good news stories, there are good things happening, and one of my goals in creating this piece was to make sure that we understand that there is the possibility of hope if we band together. We can have good things. It's not just all death and despair. It does not need to be. And I came back to the story early on in my journey. Do you want to tell the story or set it up? Oh, she likes interrupting me. But we were driving to one of our interviews, and I think I was asking about, scientists basically are really good at what they do, but they don't know how to tell their story. They're not good marketers.
Okay, this is where I'm going to interrupt. And I said, well, yeah, because that problem's been solved. There's a new, move on, right? So I'm told. So I said, we have the Montreal Protocol, the ozone layer. And Lucas looked at me totally blank. And meanwhile, I'm an undergrad a million years ago. I knew about that. I knew how we solved it. Great. And it was 2.5 hours in the car of me explaining all the policy.
Which in 1987,
In 1987.
150 countries across the world signed on to the Montreal Protocol to eliminate fluorocarbons from the atmosphere.
Everybody knows that. And Lucas said, no, they don't. And that was one of the most invigorating. We had a lot of great conversations in the car, but that was one of them.
But the result of that 1987 coming together globally is the fact that 75% of the ozone layer has been restored. And yes. really intelligent person. And kind of well-read, but I had no idea. So across this journey, I've been kind of taking a straw poll of all my intelligent and otherwise employed people in the audience and asking, what do you think? And in fact, it's split down 50-50. People don't know. So if we don't know, if the scientists aren't getting out the message that we can come together and make change, then it just feels like, well, there's no point in doing anything. And that's the whole thing of this. We absolutely can make change and put protocols in place that can we're not going to get back, as the kids said, to the way things were, but we can stop the decimation, and we can set them up to have a future that is viable and livable, and that's what we have to do.
Lucas just told me, I didn't tell you how I liked the piece, so he said, I have to tell how I liked it. It was extraordinary. It was, I don't understand your language. Like, I don't understand how you do what you do. I don't understand art, except that I know I'm deeply moved by it a lot, and I think, well, I think everybody should hear this, but I think people will get a lot out of it. I did. I want to hear it again, so if we could set that up, just call this one. So this is the last thing. I asked all of these extraordinary people to bring us an example of what can we take away. The warmingc.ne is a website that has enveloped this project. We're going to be updating it with, I think we're calling it actions or resources. What can you do next? So all of the people who spoke tonight, we're going to be highlighting what they did. We've had lots of conversations with Cassandra Rose and the Maine Climate Council, who are doing just extraordinary work. And we're not trying to duplicate anybody's work, we're trying to highlight their work, to remind people that, like Lucas said, there's lots of great work out there. We can all do something. I keep hearing Kathy, I keep hearing you say, we can all do something. And I really, truly, honestly believe nothing is too small, and we can't think too big either. It all adds up. So what I've done, because I got to pick, I put them on the spot today, actually, to give them a heads up, and ask them to give all of us something we can take away with us. What can we do to start really addressing the climate crisis? So since we started with you last time, we're going to start with Scarlett this time. I'm sorry, Scarlett. I should have given you a little. It's okay. Okay. So we're going to just come down the row and hear their takes. People who have been thinking about this in a very different, bench level. What would they ask us or tell us that we could do to help out?
Actually, as a scientist, I kind of changed my path in life kind of late, and I actually started working with kids a lot more. And I'll tell you, I kind of went from talking to adults and being like, okay, I'm just going to talk to kids now. And, kids are amazing because I think they are very hopeful in a way that when we're working in the lab all the time, seeing the data all the time, it can become really hard. But I think talking to kids, having kids share their voices, and having scientists do a better job at connecting with children, that for me is what gives me a lot of hope.
No, that's great. There's so many things you can do, but I think for me right now, I think vote. Vote for change. And you guys so organized, so hard.
Well, these certainly are challenging times, and we see a lot of bad news, but I still have hope. And I think that what we can do as individuals is try to find action groups, organizations that will spread the message of change, and groups where you can get involved and help spread the message, and also talk with people, and in particular kids, and also listen. And we all know that our country is divided, And I think the more that we reach out and talk to people who may have differing opinions, the more we can learn and understand and help make a positive change in that aspect. And I think I've said the word hope a number of times, and I feel very hopeful about the future. It's a major challenge ahead, but as a number of people have said this evening, we can come together and we can make it happen. Thank you.
Well, I don't really know a heavier subject in some ways, and things are changing quickly in the environment. What we need is for things to change, and change quickly with human beings and our consumption patterns, and the things we do in everyday life. And what do we know as scientists? People don't change their behavior just by intellectually understanding the data. We change when we become physically, emotionally engaged and upset. So one of the things I really love about this piece is that it is upsetting to listen to parts of it. It's very moving, and that relentlessness I spoke of earlier, we need non-scientists engaging in this way to bring more of us together in these venues to really feel the cataclysmic implications of what's happening to our planet. This is about the soberest, weirdest thing as a species we could be doing to the planet. How are we going to make these shifts happen? So we've seen we have a huge capacity for change, but we've got to have the will to do it. And I think the only way that will be mobilized is by us really feeling the despondency, sharing that grief, feeling an openness to express it through art and through conversation and through tears together, and then really do what we can to wrestle with living our lives really differently. Not easy, absolutely possible. Thank you.
So I spend a lot of time thinking about the places where the land and the sea meet, tidal marshes and mud flats and places like that up and down the coast, and bringing it down from that global change that is absolutely needed. All across the state, there are decisions that are going to play out over the next 50 years, 10 years, 5 years in local communities that make a difference. I think of that road that Kathleen Billings mentioned in her town, in Stonington. And what happens with that road makes a difference not only for transportation, for people being able to get onto and off of and around the island, it makes a difference for those habitats that are impacted by that structure too. So I would say there are literally hundreds of roads like that and thousands of parcels of land across the state that are going to be impacted by climate change. Get involved locally, talk to your local town, ask questions about what type of decisions people are making in the community where you live.
I've thought a lot about the numbers involved that we're looking at, and I have 3 numbers that I want you to take away from this. And I know it's probably a lot to ask at the end of a long day, but these 3 numbers are really important. The first number is 2.1. 2.1 is the number of tons of carbon that every human on the planet generates. 2.1 is the amount of carbon that every human on the planet needs to aspire to in order that we don't go past 1.7 degrees Celsius by the year 2050. 2.1. Right now, that's the first number, 2.1. Right now, the average amount of carbon produced by every human on the planet is 4.7. Remember, we need to get it to 2.1 so that we don't go up above a certain value, which is 490 parts per million. You don't need to remember that. But the other number, so there's 2.1, 4.7 is the average carbon produced by every human on the planet. 15.1 is the average amount of carbon produced by every American on the planet. 15.1. So when you think about taking a flight from New York to Paris and back, that's 2 tons of carbon right there. That's one person's allotment of carbon to be generated. If you can take a train instead of a plane, do it. It's about a factor of 40 less. If you can change your diet in certain ways, by whether you're a vegetarian or if you're a meat eater, if you ate meat every meal for a year, you would effectively produce a ton of carbon. So there are things that we can do, and which is the hope part about this. But we have to get down to it. But time is short, and if we don't act now, it will be too late. So just think about how you generate carbon. There are websites you can go on and you can figure out what your yearly carbon output is. Make your houses out of energy efficient materials and so forth. So those three numbers, 2.1, 4.7, and 15.1.
One of the favorite shows that my wife and I like to watch is The Good Place. And I'll not summarize the entire series, but ultimately it becomes understood that no matter how good one is, the system is rigged and you can't win. Because life is so complicated. And even if you choose to eat organic tomatoes. The fact is that the organic tomatoes perhaps were supplied by somebody in Peru who decimated their grounds and raised corn at one point, and it's a spinning thing where you can't win. So what can we do? Not everybody can write a symphony. I understand that, and I don't know, I hope that this has an impact. I hope that we're able to utilize what we've done here tonight in some kind of productive way to get the word out. But there are definitely choices. Every day I look in the mirror and say, what can I do? I feel helpless. But the more we do know, and even the smallest choices of how we go through our daily life, we are completely able to make those choices. That's something we can do. And one choice leads to another choice, leads to another choice. And that's how we partner as a global community. So I am so honored and I feel so blessed and glad I could be here tonight. I want to thank Governor Mills for being here with us. We need to be able to listen to the voices of those who are leading the charge for effecting change. And thank you again, Kate.
So I'm going really old school here without my phone, which feels very strange. I'm just, Jane Goodall, another great woman scientist. I would just like to leave you with a quote from her most recent book, I believe, The Book of Hope, The Survival Guide for Trying Times. Hope is often misunderstood. People tend to think that it's simply passive wishful thinking. I hope something will happen, but I'm not going to do anything about it. This is indeed the opposite of real hope, which requires action and engagement. So that's what I take from this, action and engagement. Thank you all for coming.